The women's reading started after the January 21st, 2017 Women's March, which was the largest single one-day protest in United States history. And it was after the inauguration of the other guy, who is no longer living in the White House. And because I couldn't go to the march, and many people I knew couldn't, I wanted to do something that brought women's voices together. And so we had our first women's reading in March of that year. And we've had them every year since, except for last year, which we missed because of the pandemic. So what is happening is that there are 20 readers, and they are all in alphabetical order, except for the last two who have had to come later because they had other meetings that they had to go to. So we've got everybody in fine alphabetical order, except for the last two who are really worth waiting for. Okay, so our first reader, what's happening is that the reader will come on, say her name, and begin reading the poem. Most people, if you look them up on Google, you'll be able to find out some more information about them. We will have a little bit of time afterwards to talk if you have questions. So don't worry, if you have something that you really need to know, write it down. And at the end, we'll open it up for questions and comments. Our first reader is Pam Bernard. Pam?
Thank you, Susan. I'm unmuted, correct? Yeah.
Yes.
This is an honor. Thanks so much. My poem is called Astronaut. And there's an epigraph. The error is not to fall, but to fall from no great height, by Dean Young. Porcelained with grief, everything diminishes below her. Her house with its one tree flung down in shadow. Ever smaller, the dog throws his head back to bark. Subdivisions platted at the edge of town stitch across the landscape, cul-de-sacs arcing whimsically. Then bright blue set clean against dense foothills. A lone mountain road struggles through folds of copper green. Soon, an earth that cannot be consoled is gone, leaving the certainty of rivers meandering, of gyres and vortices, spiral eddies. No need reckoning course latitudes or doldrums. Now every oval is a promise of return. But because she could never name the sadness or stop the hollowing, on the portal glass, round as a compass rose, she covers the earth with her hand. As her delicate craft plumbs as deeply as a diving bell into a universe of elegant simplicity. One body giving light, another receiving it. Yet below her, a mistral sweetens the land over which it howls. Balm of lavender rising from the hillsides afterward in the heat. And in the city, a museum guard yawns among the masterpieces. There are two gates of sleep, Virgil says. Choose the true one. Thank you.
I am Holly Brown. This is With Lilies and Ghosts. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
With lilies and ghosts. Would I have seen another summer how the lemon lilies had spent almost all their buds on July. They were down to only 3 by the 1st of August, the day I helped bury my youngest aunt, my father's favorite, the one most liable to burst into song for any reason or none. We gathered to recall her impossibly without singing in the time of the virus, known to be spread by any ardent breath. After her pastor had tried to convince the one true heathen he could see me, and after he'd promised life eternal with every saved soul gone before, to hearten any faithful who wavered in the heavy wind of grief, I tossed my cousin a kiss and then drove home to wander in the grass below the hill where all my dead appear to have taken a vote and chosen this heaven, even the ones whose lives never brought them here. Once more, I hear them come singing down the pond. My father and my mother in the harmony of my childhood, the rest all glad to join. I stand by the open throats of the last lemon lilies of the year, blooming on the 1st of August to welcome Blanchie. And I sing along.
I'm on a video. Sorry, my child just came in. Therese Carr and Therese Gleason Carr. And I'd like to read The Girl Who Cried Wolf. She wasn't wicked, just young, a woman child who didn't fit into her burgeoning body. Some days she danced or played her pipe as the sheep slept at her feet. Others, she sat sullenly, cursing the grass for itching her ankles, the sheep for their oily wool, their grating bleats and rank manure. Maybe she grew tired of braiding flower wreaths to hang on their napes, longing for her own crown, to be swept away by a lover, to escape a future already materializing, rough hands fumbling between skirts, a belly growing heavy year after year. Or perhaps she confused her own musk with the wolf's scent, half asleep at dusk, waist deep in a dream. The yellow slits she thought she saw, just the dregs of daylight shivering through the trees. The first time she sounded the alarm, the village came running with torches. The second time she shrieked, in the night, again they flew to her rescue, wary eyes narrowing, not a track in sight. The third time, no one saw her disappear, following the wolf into the darkness, while the sheep milled in terror, throwing her head back, licking blood from her paws under the pearl moon. Let's do one more. Underworlds, after Camille T. Dungy. I speak for the dirt, thick with red Kentucky clay, for my ancestors' fields in Illinois and Iowa, the Victory Garden in the Indiana knobs, soil black and rich, nourished by death. I speak for the pig turning on the spit, noble mammal, flesh roasting golden, for the smoke rising in the distance, for the burning of green brush to clear the land. I speak for the worm, prostrate in the darkness, aerating the earth, making way for seeds to split and sprout, for the tangled roots, thick and coiled, plaited to a heavy braid, the gritty anchor, the edible fruit. I speak for the DNA spiraling in fine strands of hair plucked from the scalp, for the cord that ties us by our belly to the placenta in the moon jelly sac. I speak for the bladder and bowel in praise of their holy work, sacred elimination. I speak for the nether regions, lawless borderlands, where the undercurrent of death weaves its black thread. And I speak for the sit bones and hips, the womb, the cervix, the purpled scar above my pubic mound, whence 3 souls were pulled from salt water into the light. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Devon Evans, and my first poem is Bone Moon. Winter drifted down, unfolding in infinite blankets, wind feathering, swirling white beneath a bone moon. An air that brittles blood, slows the mind, turns dreams thick, oozing, bubbling, iridescent black. In a snow-topped tower, the old man gasps, misery. A master unused to foreseeing defeat, a checkered floor slanting beneath him. War talismans dot crossroads, reeking masses for victory, intestine wrapped, unraveling, spellwork faulty, pieces falling, single hands spasm, fingers splay. A queen towers at the battlefield, all angles and ambition. Her warriors too gaunt, unable to eat steel. Harvest shrouded in snow, mottled with cadaver ash, white embellished by gray. A queen and her people who've forgotten even how to feed themselves. But drifts cover transgressions. The old man's ivory topples, his beard tangled by the game, and the queen's triumphant over graves. Her face glittering as the moon, radiance chasing shadows, the dark unseen recedes. A dreamer wakes, eyes iridescent, oil black. And I have one more called Coyotes. It's true there were no tricks that day. Spring was still wearing its neutrals, silent green shoots sleeping beneath. I in my washed out rough spun jacket, you with your tawny brindled coat, our eyes tangling in the orchard, and both surprised by each other. Old acquaintances, forgotten names, each waiting for the other to act. My sister spoke of howling woods. My brother raked up our pet ducks. You never tried to dissemble. No tricks, too intent on the land, gurgling streams, dry waist-high grass. It was not a day for aggression. And opposite we exited, both turning backs and parting ways, and have not laid eyes on you since. But now my legs can't climb the hills. My lungs are shrinking and short on breath. Forest colors turn hazy and dim. Meet me in the unkempt orchard, beneath the gnarled and darkened boughs. Come, teach me how to shed this skin. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Fagley, and I'm going to read Off Season to you, my first poem. A solitary man rows on a lake mid-May. The summer houses are empty but one, where a couple sits on the dock and watch his movements, the elegant line his canoe makes, sending small ripples to shore. The dock moves beneath them. He is closing the distance and can make out the color of their hats, the shape of a glass. Behind them, the line of sheets ripple, making small thunders. Lilac air smells of desire. Its absence in his life he feels, as real as the cool water that splashes up on his hands, the wood beneath him. The air turns cold and light shifts. The couple runs together in the sheets, screen door banging behind them. He could follow their laughter all the way upstairs. Their old house, journey's end, sinks into the ground, proper for its age. Stone foundation rounded like pillows. The house reddens in the sunset. He imagines he hears something, a tiny cry, and stops paddling. Lying back, he eases himself into the shape of the canoe, as if it was designed for his exact dimensions. He rests his head on the life jacket, and where he was going was always here. My second one has a running title, so the title of the poem is the first line also. I caught a word as it flew by, my head like the elusive bluebird I never see, and tucked it in my brain for further reference. But how or when it will come again is impossible to know. This word will soon fade away, then one day reappear with no prompting, a last name or maybe a first and last name. Whitney Allrood, my tenant from 30 years ago, who was a voice major, her name came to me recently for no reason, or an archaic word from Bronte like vassalage or ignis fatuus, the phosphorescent light at the end of the day. Thank you.
My name is Jennifer Freed. I'll see if I can fit 2 poems in. Leaving. This visit, I look at the blue of my mother's eyes behind her glasses as she talks with my teenage daughters. She wears my father's frayed button-down, now mottled with wood stain and paint. Her hair, cut short, shows the shape of her skull. She returns to the garage, slides past the table she's been sanding, and pulls out 2 planters, ceramic, blue, from a yard sale for me, too heavy for her. I take in her laugh, its crooked lower teeth. When I kiss her, I bend lower than I used to. Her skin smells of warmth and wood, a lingering of Shalimar. There she is now, behind the glass of her front door, one hand raised in goodbye, mouthing, I love you, as we pull out of the driveway. I say to my girls, look, isn't she beautiful? And the older one says, I guess. And the younger one says, but why do you keep saying that? And I think I don't know what to say, but my mouth is already answering. My mouth says, because I know she's going to leave. The second poem is me trying to imagine what the world was like after my mother had a stroke. This is called Tilt-A-Whirl. You were at home, knew its shadows, its bones. You could paint it with your eyes closed, knew it so well that you didn't know it after all, as one doesn't know air. You awoke to sun glare and days, the roof ripped off, walls flat on the grass. Now you move through a stranger's rooms. Weeks tumble by. You keep trying to hang your old clothes, reset the clock. Your hours warp. Your feet can't remember the ground. Your thoughts, stray cats in a field. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joyce Heon, and my poem tonight is in response to my lifelong friend telling me about her mother's passing from cancer some 15 years after my mother had died. Her mother was born in Maine, and while I never heard her say "ayah," she was always plain spoken and plainly outspoken. Ministrations for Jean and her mother Beulah. Beulah says lupins, feels of it. She knows lupin flourish and die, renew themselves, all without tending. You tend her anyway. She would like for you to hear her, Jean, but you are only pleased she has this memory for comfort. She might like to say, "Don't you think I know how to die?" The aides arrive with their smiles and tender hands, their scripts at the ready, words that hide as they reveal. Hospice, the very word whispers, as their soft souls pad in and out, rearranging, reassuring those who cannot decide the relative merits of outcomes. Beulah, complicit and angry, knows they both prolong and hasten. Morphine, it sounds somewhat like myrrh, that gift of beginning and end. Sun shadows chase moon shadows across rooms. Everyone chooses to celebrate living by living. Guilt is the shadow they decide not to look back at, so it leaps ahead of them. Beulah would have wanted us to not waste our allotment, her daughters repeat firmly, as if guilt could overhear. Well, let's say it now. Death. And to Beulah, how are you today? Our walk-on line delivered, we arrange our faces to hear her say, "I dreamt I died last night." As you tell me, Jean, I listen. But what I hear is my mother chewing, working hard to swallow those last mouthfuls I fed her. My brother and sister natter on about the living and the past, fulfilling the compact. She has eaten, but we are misled about which corner she has turned. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Emily Judkins, and I'm hoping to read 2 poems if I can. Coming of Sage, in which angels drink you up with the moonlight. Cinnamon scents up the sin I'm in, sugar and vice spicing the spite, spilling sprite for ginger angels with sore throats looking for their halos misplaced from tripping on the stairway to heaven, and a haven staring up at the gentle lights, dazzling for the sake of shaking in the rocking crib of hospitals, spitting talc and powder, tonic and power, as the shivers of pleasure burst into the hospice straws that draw in the pluming, blooming pops of grains of paradise, gaining a pair of dice for dicing cloves into the clubs of angels playing pretty, as Rosemary grabs her rosaries and plays them into the tainted saints that read off your last rites to party. Baby, you didn't want to go with Grace. You grabbed fistfuls of gardens as you spared and spread sunlight everywhere and brewed out the brooding of weeping willows, made creeping willowy boys bend and break until they needed more than any of your natural remedies, you natural reverie, revered for never running out of time to make into tea to stop the night from swelling over our lungs, letting us breathe in that heavy, aromatic, automatic incense, sensing the scent of the thurible that the angels swung around the disco delight that was going to make sure that when you left this world, you'd make your exit in 1,000 lights as we lit the candles you left in our chests. When you made altars in our ribcage after altering us forever, some teenage magic left in the universe in the smoke of your coming of sage, leaving no room for your absence. You never acted sick because there was so much left in the world to heal, and in this I believe you found a cure. Something purer than crystals, something charging you like quartz or moonstone, christened by nips and parsnip, spun out of the woven fate tapestries until we all fit into the bigger picture. Maybe it was growing roots and never growing up, refusing the punks, any lost spunk, refusing to dunk any darkness in your morning. All this to say is that when the angels came for you, they brought an extra pair of dancing shoes and a new kettle, because they knew there was so much more than heavenly light to burn and too many records that would go unturned. And my second poem is called You Left at Dawn, So They Mistook You for Time. Kneel into the knell shaped out of salable solipsism, the mimicry bells emerging with ersatz emergency, melted into tolls and tombs and tolls, tolling up the toiling sounds of telling peace spit piercing ears, all cracked, crooked cosmetology of cosmology, of spreading all the sound that fit into the dark sun of preeminence, of how little permanence can permeate in this permissiveness of light, how permissible misnotes can be when your body is the universe, and you swing between untenable winds, touched by never being, and holding all this tenderness as you let it all ring out, ringing around the roses as wilting waits for the embodiment of all of you to shudder out of opuses and into the final forgiveness, the dipping moonlight, your graceless hand grinning as you paint over the shadows with the earth's own speckled star, where all that is left to teach is this is how you return your legs to bend without worship, and this is how you return to the stars, and this is how you return home, before peeling back into laughter, back into the universe, where death cannot be disgraced in church bells any longer, but instead kneels in the tintinnabulation of your tinny fairies, these tiny thanatoses carrying you off into the wind, as all the people emerged, running out of dreams to rub out of their eyes as they're gulping in your air without care, miming out their time. And this is how I make my faith, how I piece my daybreak back together, how I know you are already everywhere, not making a scene, but becoming it. Thank you.
I'm Maura MacNeil, and my poem is titled Night Owl. You're frantic night, you're something lost. I drove to the next place from the last place, followed your geography of despair with one more thing gone when everything was gone. You, dear sister, split in the dark as I drove the long stretch of tar-patched road. I could not help you, down on my knees with flashlight, sifting through the shoulder rubble. I didn't know what it was we were looking for. Some vague description you gave on the phone when you called for my help to find what you had dropped, misplaced, forgot. I thought I would get the story straight as you sat in my car and we stopped and started over and over in the breakdown lane, hazard lights flashing. But it just got darker, and it got harder and harder to drive, to focus with the glare of headlights coming straight on. Then that night owl sweeping out of the forest, chasing something worth the risk of breaking apart, flying apart when it sailed out of shadows into the car window with a crack. I couldn't bear to stop, to turn the car around and find a body weakly flapping, maybe a half-broke neck and twisted wings. It was all I could do to keep your hauntings from appearing in the back seat. So I kept my eyes fixed forward, your stunned silence a relief as I told you we were going home.
My name is Cheryl Perreault. I offer this poem for women who raise their voices, their cries, their protests for themselves and for the world. And this is called Roar. When I was 5, I was shy, and I was told if I didn't start to talk at school, I'd have to stay back a grade or 2. I was quiet though, quietly told what I thought was the truth. Swollen tonsils clogging my potential for the spoken word. And then came the day I had to have those tonsils removed. I was quietly nervous, chewed on my nails, wrapped my arms around my mother and quietly cried. But when it came time to face the largest needle I'd ever seen in my life, even though the two younger boys who shared my room only said ow when they got the shot, nurses asking why such a small, quiet girl couldn't do the same, when I squirmed from their aim, it was right then that I couldn't help but let out a great roar. My arms were flailing, my legs were splaying, my lungs were wailing. I made so much noise for a girl of just 5. It took that many nurses to hold me down till the shot hit my side, but it did not quiet my roar. And when I was in my teens, my mother told me it was time to transform. The facts of life scared me to death. Yet I remained composed, still so very quiet, quietly grieving the loss of my childhood, quietly fearing this strange new world of women. I read the books, listened to the facts they said I should know, quietly nervous about what was in store. So I chewed on my nails, wrapped my arms around my best friend, and I quietly cried, waiting for the blood of womanhood to arrive. And when it did hit, my quiet subsided and transformed into a deep, dark roar. As I held on the bedpost, my arms were flailing, my legs were splaying, my lungs were wailing. It took 5 Tylenol to keep me down until I came to grips with the curses inside, but it did not quiet my roar. And now I sit here quietly waiting, watching my children grow and move on and my life passing by. I'm in the later stages of life and feeling the changes inside my veins, thoughts in my mind. I talk to my friends who are older women, share the feelings that whisper inside, knowing there are more changes in store for being a woman that will keep calling my name until the end of my time. So I am quietly nervous, chew on my nails, wrap my arms around my own morphing body, and quietly cry. But when it comes time to face my life changes, I will once again let this quiet subside and once again permit myself to cry out, to break the sound barrier of my life and give myself one more chance to close my eyes, to open my mouth, to take in the air and feel the occasional rage of being a woman within the deep loudness of my roar.
Go ahead, Catherine.
I'm Catherine Reed, and my poem is The Intruder. Death walks in, no invitation, an unwelcome guest. Doesn't ask if it's a good time. The month of August was like the coldness of winter, like icicles clinging to gutters, hearts shattered. They found Eddie on the pavement, unconscious, 2:30 in the morning, pronounced dead on arrival. Lillian's daughter succumbed to cancer. Jason made the dean's list, overdosed the next night. Bob, with Parkinson's, now talks to his dead wife, sits in a rocking chair all day, rambles. And I sit exhausted, no longer remember your name. It gets dark early. My second poem is Lost Words. When her daughter visits, she smiles, watches in silence, frail body spent. In the dark of night, they find her on her knees, hands folded. After weeks in bed, doctors wondered how she got up. Did the angels lift her up when God called? Thank you.
I'm Eve Rifkah. I'm going to be reading 2 poems from my next book. First one, Blessing. She stares at the sea over red roofs, turns to the hills erased in fog, at her distant home. Car engines rev to nowhere, music from up the street, to distant boats screeching. Now here, feet on narrow road, hemmed by stone walls, laced with flowers. Cows ignore her passing, goats watch her, watch them. A small bird sings. She turns in circles a stranger, even to herself. Voice muted, her tongue stupid in a language not her own. Here she understands nothing, but her feet walking the edge of the world. Second poem, The Widow of Fahaz Grand. Whitecaps rise and fall as distant dolphins. I once shook my fist, spat at the sea. Fa! The devil in blue, the devil in green, gray, grabbed my Joseph, mine. What am I saying? With the sea, there is no mine. Taught heaven, hell, God, and devil. Out there is only air and sea. One breathes or doesn't. The sea took my man, spun in sail and oar and splintered keel. What kind of payment was that? I say fa on all the priest. No God can heal my empty bread. I turn my back to the sea. The ache snakes up my stomach, fills my throat with spume. Turn away, tighten robe, put kettle on, grind coffee, slice bread, pull out bucket and brush, clean these old tiles again. The wash water bites me cold. I force again my hand, my flesh, into the vastness, into the depth that I know has bottom. I will not fall in. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Francine Sterle. My poem is entitled April 19th, 1995. Goya would have known what to do with those circles, blue ones marking bits of suspicious debris, pink ones, body parts that were blown blocks away. Goya would have ignored traditional composition and plotted lines of force, dispensed with axes and center points, and splashed down color in a frenzy to picture the nesting house sparrow mashed into chicken wire, or sketched the shredded flag and plastic playthings tangled around blasted pipes, loose wires, random shoes. And with a furious hand, fleshed out a woman with her leg slashed almost in half, and islands punctured by glass, one ear dangling from a gash in her scalp. On a canvas pale as the plains of Oklahoma, Goya would have painted the man stumbling from the blasted building, a sheet of glass sticking from his back like a ghastly wing, and a dark red jet spurting from an artery in his neck. Goya would embrace this scene, these people. With unrelenting strokes, he would paint the brief colors of spring delicately wakened in the funeral flowers stuffed into holes of a chain link fence, then lead us to the woman's skull found crushed beneath a concrete slab, to the legs charred almost beyond recognition, half buried beneath crumbling plaster and steel shelving. In blazing colors smeared on with a palette knife, we would see the crumpled cars burning in the distance and the trained dogs circling, disoriented by the overpowering odor of death. As his strokes grew more and more agitated, as the planes dropped violently away, as Goya threw down clots of pigments and added acid touches to the mangled debris swirling across the canvas, our eyes would follow as he led us through 10 tons of rubble to find a woman breathing, a doctor lying on top of her, blood from a body above dripping on his brow as he severs her leg without proper anesthetic. In an exaggerated clarity of vision, the unsheltered world would explode. And in the midst of fire and flying glass, in the midst of Goya's fiercely balanced lines, we would be forced to see the children's bodies counted and carried off like soldiers, so cold and pale and empty-eyed, scattered across a battlefield's black glass. Thank you.
I'm Nancy Bailey Strong. I'm reading one of my newer poems. Funeral Queen, for C.B. The funeral directors of all the funeral parlors knew she did a nice funeral. She wasn't choosy. The dearly departed didn't have to be one of her flock or have a family or mourners or an address. She claimed she was a hard ass about some things, but not funerals. She knew that all are flesh and bone bags, that everyone needs a prayer to the Creator. One week in August, she did 5 funerals. Hard work she was good at because there was truth beneath the sobriquet. She was the funeral queen, prayer of last rites and last resort. She never used the clean white sand from the funeral director's silver shaker. Some came to carry a trowel in their hearse glove box, but mostly she knelt on the astroturf, reached down into the grave to scoop a handful of earth, plucked roots and grasses from it, cupped it until ashes to ashes, dust to dust, then sprinkled it above the casket's floral tribute, let dirt, errant pebbles rain down, rattle on the lid. She wore choir vestments in summer heat so that solemn words were accorded their full dignity. She thawed hard clay in her bare hands for winter's frozen committals. She did a nice funeral each time she was asked, laughed easily in the hearse when the driver told tales of life and death, his own or another's, fingered the pages, dirt dusted, of the burial office book, located carefully folded tissue tucked inside to wipe the worst of soil from her fingers before she turned another leaf of prayers, shook hands with mourners, then returned to church to make careful notes of names, dates, numbers in the church register, locked up, and went home to rest from burying the dead. It's not easy being queen, she sighed. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Susan Elizabeth Sweeney, or else Beth. I have 2 poems from a series about a medieval queen whose husband has disappeared. Needlework. A thing is what it seems. Although she may not need to cook or clean, our daughter must be taught to sew because someday she'll be a queen. A queen can sew a perfect seam. A queen can sew 6 sets of clothes so they will seem the same. She sews gowns, cloaks, and hoods and draws each bodice closed. Her stitches are like angels because they can't be seen. Her sewing is a kind of rhyme, a psalm, a seam that binds both here and there, so they will seem the same. A queen must trim and hem to keep the body close. She knows to tie each knot so nothing will unwind. She makes a stitch in time, a gathering, a folding in of what has been and will become. A queen must be a seamless whole to keep things as they seem. No, she must be the seam. Snow. A queen is not supposed to show she's angry or afraid. She learns to sew feelings closed. A queen might choose to say goodbye, but do so without words. She'd carry to her highest tower 6 goose-down pillows that she sewed for you, and slit their soft white bellies, so the feathers flutter to the ground below, where children, laughing, gather them to throw and catch again. From high above, she'd watch the whiteness fall. Whatever a queen must never show would stay unseen. The dancing children would not know you were those birds whose feathers she let go.
Hello, I'm Rhett Watts. For us, spring starts in March, but for the Irish, it traditionally starts on February 1st, celebrating Brigid's Day or Mbalc. Around that time this year, I was really needing to connect with ancestors, and there were no more oldies in my family, so I read about the traditions of the Irish and thought about my Irish great-grandmothers who no doubt took part in celebrating Brigid, who was a goddess before the church made her a saint. On Brigid's Day Eve, January's last afternoon, sun falls on oak floors on me, not often on my knees, scrubbing while listening to Enya. Songs sweet as Murphy's oil soap, then adamant as the Bowrun's beat brings me to my feet. I push the mop, fierce as the warrior queen I was this morning, arguing with my mate. Brigid, beneath your mantle, gather us and restore us to memory. Central heat comforts against the biting blue sky. Keeper of the hearth, kindle us. Danes have a word for this coziness. It slips my mind, slick as the bucket of suds now set aside. Wipe the counter, set the kettle on for tea. The world back in order, an ache spreads over me sudden as robins settling in the juniper beyond the kitchen window. Lady of the Lambs, protect us. I think of my mother, of the long years spent apart, I'd offer her a cuppa, but like the birds, she remains on the other side of glass. Mothers of our mother, foremothers strong, guide our hands. Patroness of babies, blacksmiths, boatmen, of poets and children whose mothers are mistreated by their husbands, remind us how to kindle the hearth, to preserve the flame. Tonight, I'll lay out a scarf for Bridget to bless as she passes between winter and spring. Tomorrow, I'll summon her under my threshold. Protection of Bridget, keep us from harm, from ignorance, from heartlessness, from dawn till dark, from dark till dawn. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Catherine or Kate Zebrowski, and I'm going to do two short poems that kind of go together. First one's called A Room. Second one is called Winter Garden. The Room. Who would wander in this closed loop, encompassed by dream and wood, square footage unmeasured, molecules swept in and out, where cells and heat skitter across the floor that carries the thump of footfall onto boards that hold up their end of the bargain. Oak panels lock in warmth, while glass, a less solid barrier, welcomes light and shadow, the oxygen of pine and fir seep through. A wooden cabinet holds glasses, bottles, framed pictures. A galaxy hangs on the wall. Potted cacti rest on the floor, while a dot board from a bar no longer open rests on a chair. Books and pictures lean on a shelf. Chairs gather haphazard around a table, ready to carry the burden of human weight. Outside, pine and fir stand their ground against a wilderness of inquiry. Next one is called Winter Garden. While I have vision, show me contrast, a dead branch fallen across a fir, the slant of the sun through both. A tiny window's reflection inside a larger window, where light forms a square inside an oblong. Let me capture the image in a painting, maybe photograph. Maybe a photograph would come closer. Show me the shaking reeds strong on spindly stalks that cling to their dried husks after the wind has shaken all else away. One stalk among them, top heavy, blows its broken neck, pushing vision downward, where dried fern lean against the reeds. Their brown fronds, intricate like tiny vertebrae, show me the picker bushes that have succumbed to the storms, bent over like a waterfall of dry sticks, or ballerinas bending elongated necks, arms meeting overhead, caught in the intricate dance of wild tangles. But light changes too quickly, and all that is captured is the rotted branch fallen into the arms of the fir. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Frazier. I'm going to read one poem. For college students who don't know how to talk to the folks they meet off campus. It doesn't take higher education to see that you haven't developed any class, or the ability to clean up or learn from the remarks you make in mixed company. While you've been vocally mesmerized by my word choice and dexterity of what you must think was my code switch for your compliment. I can't believe you missed my eye roll at your implications. I mean, what must you think my natural vernacular consists of? Look me in the eye. Register my face. Don't you know that I see you? Walking scared down streets that my cousins are near indigenous to. You signed a lease, ignorant of the local history, but are uncomfortable with the neighborhood until it resembles until it looks like a commercial for Subaru. Every corner posted officer not conditioned to police your particular hue. You call me sketch because sometimes I walk with a limp. I work 2 jobs on my feet. My mother worked 3. I take pride in the grace that I make in the space between too small pay and smile during night class at your crass assumptions. I spent my whole life studying, and you think your once over is thorough? Please, do not test me. I spent my entire childhood doing the math. Teachers constantly underestimating while I amount to, classmates steeped in the belief I was beneath them, boyfriends that never introduced me to parents, prom pity dates that would pose for no more than one picture. I learned how to read early the map my own path would take if I trust folks like you to hold the pen. How I would come to see myself if I let you position the mirrors. You're already in my rear view. Clocked by your walk and small talk to be a complete snooze that I could dance phrases around all night if I need to. Go ahead. Stay asleep. Take comfort in all that privilege, baby. I might be ridiculous too if I was in your shoes. Daddy's money and a boring story. I have wider definitions of wealth and I'm going for glory. Hungry in all the ways that keep me working towards greatness. Starving, dangerous, I sharpen both sides of this vocab. Ready to cut at loud volume the chords of stereotypes you admit you believe to be my lot. Serving it to crowds of kids who might speak to their coworkers with more respect next week. While you thumb through your black music in little IKEA crates, wondering why everything tastes like community resentment and artisanal mayonnaise.
My name is Patricia Eng, and I'm going to read a poem that was written in response to the Atlanta area spa shootings. The name of the poem is My Name Inaudible. I go by my middle name, Aaron. I played drums, whispering, when I was at Sequoia High, 1916 Piedmont Road. It's definitely an outlet, yeah. If I'm angry or something, Gold Spa. I go down to my drum set, Inaudible, and start hitting stuff right now. It just helps, so can help me come. My friends say 1916 Piedmont Road. I am super nice, super Christian. Huh? A deeply religious person. I don't know. And very quiet, inaudible. I would walk around school, that guy, with a Bible, that's why. Need police, pizza, guns, drums, music, yeah. Family and God, whispering. This pretty much sums up my life, Gold Spa. It's a pretty good life, Gold Spa. I was saved at Crab Apple First Baptist Church, Inaudible. They are all praying for me now, sorry. Just before it happened, thank you. My parents kicked me out, hiding right now. And so I was emotional, that's why. You can believe me when I say they have a gun. It was not about race, inaudible, that's why. I just wanted to eliminate, yeah, inaudible, that's why. Temptation, oh, this is Gold Spa. And I was pretty much fed up, whispering, and had been kind of, I don't know, at the end of my rope. I'm hiding right now. And yesterday was just, oh yeah, a really bad day, inaudible, for me, I don't know. And this is just, please come,
what I did. Okay? My name inaudible, whispering, thank you, please.
I'm Susan Roney-O'Brien, and I have 2 poems to read. This is a hard act to follow. All of you wonderful poets coming before me. I am overwhelmed with the beauty of your words and the strength of your emotions. This is called Orpheus. When the song begins, daffodils lift their coronas away from smashed cars, broken bottles, matted news, and sway between bleak slabs of tenements. Honeybees rise through air on the chords, the melody like the scent of jasmine breathed as far away as roads, where one small boy hears what he should not be able to hear, plucked notes of a lyre, a song from thousands of dreams ago. And bees in some weed-choked lot between buildings sweep and dive, as though pollen lies on the surface of each crumpled page, dusts the smashed recliner lying on its side, cushions split. Is it no surprise Orpheus returns in dark times, and no wonder the small boy breathes in his song. I went to Nepal, and the one word you may not know is the word Tamal, which is the tourist section of Nepal. Happiness. Bipin, my guide to Kathmandu, tells me it is our job to be happy in this life. And when I ask if he is happy, he describes his wife of 7 days and how when they moved in with his family, his mother sat by her side, glad to finally have a daughter. I think of how happiness is defined and defines us as we wind through packed Tamal, the street alive, languages soaring like birdsong, silk fluttering alongside tatters, how it hardly matters where we come from or where we go. Bipin and I watch an entire family, father, mother, 2 small children, piled on one motorcycle, threading among rickshaws, bicycles, old cars, and those like us on foot. The family smiles, the horn blares. So you are happy, I say. We are both grinning and waving to the family. One child, the one balanced on top, laughs, waves, then buries his face in his mother's river of long black hair. Thank you. All right, that's all the readers. I love the variety. I love all the voices and the subjects. Women writers are not afraid to tell the truth. And I expect that men writers are the same, but women have been kind of pushed aside for a while. And I am so happy to be able to hear your voices and to add my own. It's so important to keep talking, to keep writing, to keep thinking, to keep dreaming, and to keep moving. Rochelle, Patricia, Francine, your 3 poems really moved me too. Very strong, very beautiful. I love the strong words, and I thank you for sharing them all with us, everybody. A great night. Thank you.